Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. In 1967, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice recommended the creation of a single number that could be used nationwide for reporting emergencies. Federal Communications Commission staff met with AT&T staff in November of 1967 to discuss the issue. In 1968, it was agreed that AT&T would implement a unique emergency number, 911, which was brief, easy to remember, dialed easily, and worked well with the phone system in place at the time. Calling this single number provided a caller access to police, fire, and ambulance services, though what would become known as a common public safety answering point. 911 did not become widely known until the 1970s, and many municipalities did not have 911 services until well into the 1980s. Here to discuss 911 services is the Director of 911 Services for Madison County, Illinois, Terry McFarland. Mr. McFarland became an O'Fallon, Illinois police dispatcher in 1977. From 2003 to 2011, he was O'Fallon's Supervisor of Civilian and Technology Coordinator. He was hired by Madison County in 2011 to run their 911 program. Terry McFarland, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So, pretty challenging job.
Well, I enjoy it, and it can be challenging.
Well, let's go back. I mean, right now, today is the 28th of January 2014. 3 weeks ago, we had a snowstorm here. How was 911 affected or inundated by that event?
Well, actually, calls for service, I think, probably would have been the biggest impact that they had. Obviously, people were losing power, and there were accidents happening in large numbers. Other than that, we really weren't impacted that much because we are operated through a fiber optic system, which is underground. And so we didn't have that much of an impact or outages in our PSAPs. The one incident that did create a problem in the system was a water break that occurred in Glen Carbon at their police department. That took out their entire building, and they had to vacate, which took their PSAP down.
The Glen Carbon Police Department?
The Glen Carbon Police Department experienced a water break. Actually, it occurred in the chief's office and spread throughout the building, and they had to vacate the entire building, which included the comm center and, of course, the 911 dispatch. They were able, because of our system, to move into the Madison County Sheriff's Department. They took over a workstation there and were able to continue dispatching from there. That actually is a result of the system that we have in place. The 911 system is a hosted system by AT&T, who provides the service, and they provide the actually the equipment, the computers, and they installed the 911 fiber optics line. Now, 911 uses up a small portion of that fiber optics line, and so it affords the county government to take up the lion's share of the space on that fiber optics and use it for many other purposes throughout the county. However, when we went to when Glen Carbon went down and they went to the Sheriff's Department, they were able to log in, thanks to the fiber optics line, log directly into the 911 system, pretty much just as if they were sitting in Glen Carbon Police Department. In addition to that, some years ago, the county board chairman, Alan Dunstan, along with Sheriff Robert Hertz, had a vision to where they were able to obtain or purchase a site license through the New World system out of Troy, Michigan. That New World public safety software is a CAD and records management software. That enables dispatchers to dispatch 911 calls and create their calls for service at the same time. By virtue of purchasing this site license, it enables it enables the agencies that have taken advantage of the opportunity to use that same CAD and records management system, and Glen Carbon and Maryville are two of those agencies that benefit from that.
Well, let's pause here for just a moment. Let's go back. You used the acronym PSAP, and I did in the introduction.
Okay.
So let's talk about, first of all, what does that mean? What does that stand for, and what is a PSAP?
A PSAP is a public safety answering point, and that is what is established for by the 911.
So this is like when I call 911 or somebody at home listening to this, they call 911. That's the place where the operator comes on and says 911.
That's correct.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then different areas it's answered in different ways. In Madison County, we answer at 911, where is your emergency? In other areas, it's 911, what is your emergency? There's a distinct difference there. We feel that the where is your emergency is more appropriate in that we need to know where you are first, and then we can proceed with what's going on. Mm-hmm. But yes, that's the answering point. In Madison County, we have 15 public safety answering points. We have
throughout Madison County.
Throughout the entire county, right.
So when someone dials 911 and say they're in Bethalto or in Godfrey or somewhere, the PSAP may not actually be in their town, right?
It may not be, depending on the area. That's correct.
So they'll call somewhere, and then whoever they answers will then route the call to the proper police, fire, or ambulance area.
Yes, through the use of what we call ESNs, or emergency service numbers, which are set up by the 911 office. In fact, all of the PSAPs in Madison County are relatively close to the areas that they answer for. The only ones that really aren't like that would be places that are answered by the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department itself is pretty much a consolidated PSAP, so to speak, in that they've dispatched for numerous smaller municipalities that don't have police departments or have the larger fire districts, are covered by a fire district in a larger area. So, but when they answer a 911 call, the ESN, or this emergency service number, does pop up on their computer screen to tell them which police, fire, and EMS is to respond to that area.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I call from a landline to the 911, the PSAP, at 911, can they tell who's calling and where from?
They can tell from where the call is coming. On a landline, it is very precise. When you call 911, that landline tells us the exact location of where you are.
So if you say, my father's having a heart attack, they know exactly the spot where we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
But they still always ask you, where's your emergency? Mm-hmm. Because there are times to where it's not 100%. It's very close on landlines, but it's not 100%. Mm-hmm. So we always want to get that from the person that's calling as to where are you, mm-hmm. Which would include, I'm in the basement at such and such, Mm-hmm. So that's pretty important to make sure that you listen to what the dispatcher is saying, and for the dispatcher to listen to what the caller is saying.
Now I'm going to ask you about cell phones in just a minute, but before we go to cell phones, I want to digress to addresses.
Okay.
I was surprised to learn in my research for this discussion that 911 services actually has an entire program that tells them where every address is in the entire area that they serve. So in your case, it would be every address in Madison County.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
How
does that work?
We have a database manager and an addressing technician. When any place wants to add a business or a building or a residence or a complex or a residential community, they come to the 911 office, and our addressing specialist researches and assigns addresses for each plot or each lot that there will be a building on.
And that was the part I found surprising, was that 911 assigns addresses to new buildings.
Yes, we do that mainly for consistency purposes, so that no matter where you are, you have a standard for addressing. And there is a national standard for addressing that we abide by. And we work in cooperation with the post office also. If they have issues or suggestions, we'll listen to that, and we try to work with them. But a lot of times people come in, especially developers, and they want to assign addresses a certain way that just are confusing. We are more concerned about getting police, fire, and EMS to a situation than we are about having your name on the street or your address number 1 being in the middle of the block or something. So that's what that's what we use to determine how we assign addresses.
Okay. Now, there are many areas of Madison County, as in other counties as well, that are very rural. How do your ambulance people know how to find their way up some little goat path to wherever this house, that's way back, off of a farm, where is it? How do they know how to do this?
Well, through largely, many times through the dispatcher itself, in that we at 911 work with the GIS department in Madison County, and we have a 911 map that is identical to the county map. Through my GIS technician, he assigns the addresses go from the addressing technician to the database man, who assigns the ESN, the emergency service number, and then that goes to the GIS department, and then it's plotted on the map. The maps are actually able to be seen in many of the ambulances.
Now, this is the same kind of thing like when you're using a GPS in your car, and so the car seems to know where all the roads are, or at least the GPS thing in your car knows where all the roads are.
Right, but it's much more precise than a GPS in a car would be, because we actually plot we 911 and the county GIS department actually plot center lines and addresses to put on the maps, and so they're very precise. And if need be, a telecommunicator or dispatcher can direct an ambulance precisely to a location.
Now, coming back to cell phones. Okay, now I pick up the phone and I'm in my car somewhere, and I say, oh my God, my father, who's in the car with me here, seems to be having some problems. Maybe he's having a heart attack, and I'm stopped, and I don't know where I'm at. Now, what can you do about that?
The most important thing in a situation like that is stay on the phone. The caller needs to stay on the phone, because we will still get your location, even with wireless calls. However, it's not near as precise as what it is on landline calls. A few years ago, the ideal situation on a wireless call would maybe be, 1,000 feet. Well, if you're sitting or standing in a park or something, 1,000 feet is a good amount of area that you need to try to find the caller. Now it's down to almost 300 feet. Each year it gets better, and through the government, through the 911, through NENA, National Emergency Number Association, keep trying to push to get that better and better, and each year it does. But the most important thing would be to stay on the phone and listen to the dispatcher. And if it is an emergency, a medical situation, the dispatchers are trained and they've got protocols to follow to tell you what to do until assistance arrives, how to handle the situation, and walk the caller through a protocol.
Now, my phone is nice and new. It's like maybe an iPhone 5 or a Galaxy. It has GPS built into it.
Right.
Will my phone tell you where I am?
Yes, it certainly will. and we can, the police could track you even if need be. But again, it's not precise like a landline would be.
Now, there is a mandate, I noticed, that the government has, I think by the year 2019, where there's a transition from what has been tracking mobile phones using triangulation through various cell towers to actually the handset is, and I'm not able to articulate this as well as probably you can, but is that what you're talking about? Is that by 2019 the 911 services are supposed to be able to not instantaneously but close to that, be able to know exactly where that handset is within Madison County?
Yes, that is what the hope is, that is what the mandate is, but those things have a way of changing sometimes. We have been talking about, we in the industry of 911 have been talking about this next generation 911 for numerous years now. And each year it's supposedly getting closer and closer. However, we're still not there. Next generation 911 which would be, we are capable of handling enhanced 911 and next gen 911 in Madison County. But the technology isn't such at this time, and not even in the near future, I wouldn't think. In near future, I mean within the next couple of years, to handle videos and texts.
Now that was my next question is, I cannot speak. I need 911 services. Can I send you a text message?
At this time, you cannot send a text message to 911. However, there are a couple of different ways, and people that cannot speak.
Now, you're saying this is Madison County. In Madison County, Illinois, you cannot yet do this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And most of the nation, you cannot do this. There are only a couple of places that have implemented texting to 911, and it's, although it's functional, it still is somewhat experimental in even those areas. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a while before that really takes place.
What's the difficulty here? I mean, I can send a text from my phone to someone else's phone almost instantaneously. What is the technical difficulty with being able to text 911? Well,
it's over the airwaves like that. That you know, that's a very technical question of which I'm not completely 100% knowledgeable of, but you have to be able to send a text message to like the computer screen. Mm-hmm. Through the again,
I know I asked you a very highly technical question, but you're saying they're working on it.
They are working on it, yes.
Okay, so that people in the future will be able to text. Now, that brings us to the whole idea of people who think that 911 is some sort of fun place to call, or so eventually you'll start getting like crazy texts too, right?
Certainly.
What is usually done with people who are pranksters dealing with 911?
Well,
you take this very seriously, I know.
Oh, absolutely. As do the officers that are responding, take it very seriously. 911 initially was designed for life-threatening, crimes in progress type calls. Over the years, it's evolved into I need to call the police, so I'll dial 911. And the police get a lot of calls that are not emergency calls. And it's almost become routine in a lot of areas to, when you need to call the police, to call them through 911. And most people anymore don't even consider calling the emergency numbers for the police department that services them. Mm-hmm. That has created, as you can imagine, a lot of issues over the years. If a 911 system is being abused, if we're constantly getting calls from a specific location that are not 911 calls, It is against the law, and you can be cited and charged and have to appear in court as a criminal offense. It's a misdemeanor, so it's nothing extremely severe, but at the same time, it can escalate if you continue to abuse it. Now, you'd be surprised how many times 911 telecommunicators receive calls from small children who are just picked up the phone and happen to dial 911. If you get a call like that, an officer still responds to make sure what the issue is.
Now that brings it to the point, I accidentally dial 911 and then I click, just hang up. What's 911's responsibility in a case like that, where I have made a mistake and I just hung up rather than say, sorry, wrong number?
As you can imagine, they have no idea that it was a mistake. And so there's going to be an officer respond to the location that they've gotten from that 911 call to establish what did happen. The best thing a person can do, accidental or real, is stay on that phone. The 911 telecommunicator will pick it up, ask you where your emergency is. You say, I'm sorry, it was an accident, or my child grabbed the phone, and the 911 telecommunicator will say, then okay, that's fine. There will be an officer to come and just double check to make sure that everything's okay.
Oh, still? You can't, once you dial 911, you can't turn that off?
No. Now, I do realize that there are some locations or some places that may on occasion do that, but the protocol is an officer goes and checks it out if you've dialed 911.
That's interesting. So we have, over the years, let's see, just to review the history, and now I'm showing off because I actually read this stuff. Starting in 1967, like I said at the beginning of the show, there was a presidential panel that says, hey, actually it goes back to 57,
right,
where a bunch of police chiefs and fire chiefs said, we need a national number. And then it took all the way to 67 until this panel proposes it, and then in 68, AT&T picks up the ball and they actually create 911. But it takes it to the 70s, to the 80s before 911 actually comes into real use. But there have been considerable changes, as you have said. It used to be that this is all done over an analog network. Now it's gone to a digital network. Now you have the ability to know exactly where people are calling from. What other things are going on in the world of 911 in the future? We talked about the possibility of texting. What else?
Well, those are some of the greatest things coming along are the ability to text. And it's, again, being tested and experimented with in a few areas across the nation. Another valuable tool that is on the horizon will be sending videos. Just as we send right now, everybody has a phone that'll do video, and they're taking their videos. Well, this could be a crucial tool to law enforcement, to where if you are at a scene of something going on, you can get a video, send it right to a 911 PSAP, and it can be from there even sent out to the first responders on scene, or any other responding units on scene. So those two things are probably the biggest advancements that will be coming down the pike, and that are really being studied hard to implement.
Okay. Well, here in the last, say, 4 minutes that we have, two things. One, I want you to explain how is all this paid for, and two, any other things that we haven't covered yet that you want to make sure people understand.
Okay. 911 is funded through surcharges for use of your landline phones that you pay for, and through wireless. Although the wireless is still being negotiated as to what kind of surcharge is going to be charged through the wireless carriers. That's a work in progress, you know. But that's where the funding comes from. Now in Madison County, which is all I really can speak for, we have a budget that's set through the county that I prepare yearly, and then it's approved through the county board. The 911 has additional monies that come in through the surcharge. It's not included in that budget, and that's maintained aside from the general budget. It can't be used for anything other than 911 projects or 911 benefits. So that's essentially where the money comes from. It's not
So
actually
to
coming
review,
from...
you get money from the phone company that's collected off of people's either landline bills or cell phone bills.
Yes.
And in addition to that, the Madison County government, through its tax collection, I guess the general fund, they also add some money into your budget as well. Is that, am I reading that right?
No, my budget comes out of that surcharge money.
Only that?
Only that.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. And and then we obviously live by that budget, we're pretty fiscally responsible, so we stay within that budget.
About how much money do you wind up spending a year?
It's, I guess, close to $3 million. Mm-hmm. And again, that's because we don't really operate the PSAPs themselves as far as dispatcher salaries. AT&T does that. It's a hosted system, and that we obviously pay money per month to AT&T for that. Mm-hmm. And it comes out of our budget.
And they're the ones who are responsible for, or so far responsible for, any upgrades to the system?
Upgrades to the system, maintaining any issues, resolving any issues that come up software-wise or hardware-wise at our level of users. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And here in the last couple minutes, what other things do you see on the horizon or issues that you want people at home to know about?
Well, I just really want to get across to people that 911 is there to help them, to serve them, and that's what we take seriously, and that's what we intend to do. And I do realize that when people are in a panic and calling 911, they can get frustrated with the questions that are being asked. And sometimes, we might drop the ball in not ensuring that the people know we've got responders on the way while we're asking those questions. Most places we have 2 stations, two workstations, and as one telecommunicator is asking the questions, the other telecommunicator is getting first responders heading that way and to the scene. Sometimes we don't always assure them of that, and they think that we're asking all these questions before we'll send anyone. And that's pretty critical, I think, for people to know and to stay on the line. That's the biggest critical thing, is to stay on the line.
Well, that's about the time that we have here. Half hour goes by quickly when we're here on television. I want to thank you very much for coming and informing the public about 911 service. It's something that people know about, but they really don't know. So it's been very educational for me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for being with us today.
And thank you for having me.
This is going to be uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to show it to your friends. Thanks. Bye.